You put
Correct.
yourself out there in the application and say, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Ask Dr. Gray Pre-Med Q&A brought to you by Blueprint MCAT. How you doing today?
Good. How are you, Dr. Gray?
I'm wonderful. What can I help you with?
I've been watching your podcasts for quite some time. So I feel like my questions may be a bit redundant, but again, everyone's scenario is a little different.
Yep.
So I'm very thankful for this call. Appreciate you for doing this. I wanted to know, I'm a non-traditional applicant, have not been in the medical field within the past, I would say, year and a half, just because of some life changes, and actively seeking to apply next year.
Okay.
And kind of preparing myself to retake my MCAT, and currently in a master's program in something that I'm passionate about, which is a master's in medical nutrition. So I love nutrition.
Awesome.
So I just wanted your viewpoint on, I've applied three times in the past, but had a lot of life stuff going on and just like really couldn't focus that energy on applying. So I just wanted to know your take. What are some things that I should really focus on going into this next application season this next year?
Yeah, so that's a whole can of worms, right? And before I can give you an answer and really help guide you, we have to rewind and kind of peel back the onion and figure out what happened in the past that caused you kind of LeBron-esque, not one, not two, not three, well, three application cycles that haven't been successful. So let's rewind all the way back to application number 1. Why do you think you didn't get in?
That's a loaded question. Let me pull back quite some years. I don't feel that at that time I was just going in myself, not really seeking any support from anyone. That may be my personal statement. And my secondary essays weren't putting the best of me out there, if I were to think about it.
Okay. So more narrative and less stats.
Yeah. And I really didn't try to hone in too much on my stats because it was during a time where it seemed that medical schools were trying to focus more on a diverse candidate as opposed to just the scores.
I'll pause you, right? Yes, and the stats still matter. Right. So there are lots of students out there that have that kind of mindset because they're like, whoa, it's holistic review. Right. And so they're not going to care about my 2.5 GPA. They're not going to care about my 490 MCAT score. I'm like, yes, they will. First and foremost, the school has to be confident that you're going to get through medical school. That's always the first question they're asking. So stats do matter, and everything else matters too.
Makes sense.
Are stats an issue?
Got a 3.6 GPA. My first MCAT was well below the average. So I think that, yes, the MCAT did hinder me in applying, definitely. Definitely. I think that's a component. But I also think that the way I just maybe put myself out there wasn't in a way that I guess nowadays you kind of have to sell yourself as to why you would be the best candidate for their school. I feel like that.
No. You don't watch enough of me if that's what you're coming at me with. Don't come at me with that.
I don't know. I just feel like because it is so competitive, right? There has to be something that sets you apart from everyone else who's unique in so many different ways. That's
who's
what I mean by
unique? Who's unique?
I mean, we all are.
Exactly, we all are. That's the answer, right? You're unique because of your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, your aunt and uncles, right? Your family. The lens that you look at life through is what makes you unique. It's not, I cured cancer, therefore I'm unique, and that's how I'm going to sell myself. It's not that you're the most dedicated, you're the most hardworking, you're the most whatever, because you can't prove that, right? The only thing that you can do is tell your story. And someone's either going to like it or they're not. Right? At the end of the day,
yes,
you tell your story, you focus on your specific journey, not how you're better than Susie or better than Johnny. You tell your story with your blinders on, not giving a rat's you know what about anyone else that's applying, because you can't control them. You can only control you. And you put yourself out there in the application and say, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And yes, you write a personal statement about why you want to be a doctor. Not that you're going to be the best doctor, not that you're the hardest working person that's ready to be a doctor. Why do you want to be a doctor? Your activities, focus on the things that you've done. How have they impacted you? Not how they've taught you these skills or that they've prepared you in this way, because everyone can say those same stupid things. But the impact, the personal impact that either you've had on an experience or that experience had on you is the uniqueness that you're trying to draw upon. But everyone goes to, well, it taught me skills. I'm like, okay, I don't care about that. Right? So focus on your own journey. Don't try to focus on standing out or selling yourself. Just tell your story. And that alone is what connects human to human and makes a reviewer go, oh, this student, yes, has the stats to do well enough. We have the data that shows that someone coming in with this GPA and this MCAT score, they're going to do just fine in our curriculum. Past that. Now let me look at everything else. Great story, great person. They've done a lot of things. I'm really interested in talking to them. Awesome. Right? Your passion potentially for medical nutrition is going to come through, not because you're selling yourself, but probably because you have activities around those things. And you're going to have your transcript that's going to show that you're taking these courses. And your passion's going to come through, not so that you can sell yourself about, oh, nutrition is the best and I'm going to be the better doctor because I know all about nutrition. Your passion is just going to come through about why you love nutrition, how it's impacted your life, how you've seen it impact other people's lives. And then a program like Tulane, where they have a culinary institute in their medical school, is going to go, this is the perfect fit for our class.
Makes sense.
Okay. So let's go back to step one. So potentially poor narrative first time around, just telling your story. Potentially bad MCAT score first time around. 3.6, not a terrible GPA, typically going to be quote unquote good enough for most schools, depending on trends and other things. So you get through the first application cycle. What was the time period between first and second application cycle, and what did you do to improve?
Good question. It was the following year.
Okay.
I believe.
So kind of a knee-jerk reapply.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, maybe I got this. I decided to take the MCAT again.
Okay.
And scored maybe about 5-6 points higher, but definitely not where I wanted to be.
Okay.
Redid my personal statement. I edited it. I didn't redo the entire thing, but I added some things, took out some things, and sought out the opinion of cousins who are physicians, writers in my family, just to kind of get their perspective on how everything sounded.
Yep.
Did that with most of my secondaries as well. And still nothing.
Okay. Interviews, nothing.
No interviews. Nope.
Okay.
Same boat second time around.
Second verse, same as the first. All right. Yeah. So we get through that, and I'm assuming at that point some frustration setting in, some imposter syndrome, some self-doubt, but you applied a third time. Knee-jerk next year, or did you take some time this time?
I took a couple years off.
Okay.
The first year I applied was right after I got my undergrad. So it was the year after, actually. So I took a year, worked in healthcare for a bit, was a respite and rehabilitative provider for a couple of years. And then during the second application, I started working at a juice bar, which has nothing to do with medicine. And then I got in the sort of managerial position for a couple of years.
Nice.
And then at that time I was also working as a scribe at my local excuse me, Children's Hospital.
Okay.
I did that for about 3 years. So during the third application, I was kind of working at the juice bar, not really, but really heavily working as a scribe. And that's kind of when I was like, you know what, like, I know this is what I want to do. This just solidified that I know I want to be a physician.
Okay.
But at the time, it may have been another knee jerk. I'm not sure, because at the time my mom had relapsed breast cancer for the third time. So it was kind of like one of those weird situations of like, do I apply? I don't know if I have the time and the commitment to apply with everything going on at home. But my mom urged me to apply. And so I did. It went a little better because I actually got in touch with a dean at one of my local med schools and had a conversation with her. But I thought it was going to be an interview. But it turned out to be like, hey, these are your stats. This is where you are. This is where my students that, we've accepted are. And I left very discouraged. Cried the second I walked out of her office. It was just like, it was horrible. Because at that point, I just felt like I was a number. Like, she didn't give me the opportunity to really tell her about myself and why I want to apply to medical school and why I think it's important that that's my journey in life.
Yeah.
So very disheartened from that experience.
Yep.
My mom ended up passing away like a few months later, like during COVID. So it was just, I think it was like really weird timing. I don't know if I benefited from applying that cycle. Honestly, it's really hard to say. But I'm thinking of taking the MCAT again and gearing up for that. Just because I think that is a factor that unfortunately is pushing me off of the even look list. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm sorry about your mom. Hopefully, time has gone and you're talking about it. It sounds like you had a good relationship with her. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
The question at the end of the day, as we talk about your application and the feedback that you got, right? So you mentioned, I don't know if it was beneficial for me to apply. Well, it is, because you got feedback, right? It's not fun feedback to hear of, hey, your stats just aren't good enough. And you have to understand that that's one school, right? And you have to understand that it's one person at that school. Now, your stats may not be competitive with their averages, but that potentially doesn't mean that they wouldn't give you a chance, at least reviewing your application. And that's where I get into a lot of trouble with students who are like, oh, Dr. Gray, you tell everyone they can get into med school. I'm like, you have to be good enough, again, to give medical schools confidence that you're going to pass medical school, that you're going to pass the boards the first time you take them, that you're going to go be a successful advocate for that medical school. Once you're quote unquote good enough to pass through filters and get on someone's desk and be reviewed, then everything else comes out, right? What is your journey? Why are you doing this? What are your passions? And how are you going to contribute to our class? But stats are still the most important variable that students are just like, well, I have 300,000 hours of clinical experience. And so my 2.9, they're not going to care about because I've cured cancer and have, I rescue puppies every day. Right. And that's just, unfortunately, like, you have to prove that you can do well in medical school because it reflects back on them. If they have a higher than average attrition rate where students are dropping out, when the accreditation body comes around and says, hey, what's going on here? They're like, well, that student saved puppies all day. And so we really liked him, even though he never got more than a C in any of his classes. And he did the same thing here and he failed out. Right? It just doesn't work. Yeah. And so we have to start with stats. So you said 3.6 GPA. What's your science GPA? What do the trends look like?
Yeah, it's I've gone through it. It is an upward trend since freshman year to senior year.
Okay.
I did it in like a 4.5 year increment just because I studied abroad.
Okay.
I believe it's like a 3.2.
Okay.
I have to double check. Not the strongest. I know that.
So not great, right? And so this is where we have to get super nuanced, and a tool like I created with MapDap, where for free go calculate your GPAs, and then just let me know, like email me or DM me and go, okay, all of my grades are in there. Then I can look at those trends, and I can just very quickly go, you've proven yourself, you haven't proven yourself. That's always, always, always the first step for me. And again, students don't like to hear that because they're like, well, I'm just a number. Yes, you have to prove that you're good enough to do well in medical school. That's what they're looking for.
Should we take into consideration the master's program that I'm working on?
Probably not, because it's not hard sciences. Nutrition, maybe there's some physiology, biochemistry stuff maybe in there that is great. But probably the majority of the medical school is going to be like, it's all right. But it's not proving academics in hard sciences. So that's GPA standpoint. We need to see what those trends are. So you could have a 3.2, and I would be like, great. It's not a problem. Your trends look fantastic. You've proven yourself. You could have a 3.2, and I would say, you haven't proven yourself. It's not that the final number. It's the story behind the number that really matters. Okay? So that's GPA. MCAT score. It's been a few years. You probably need to retake the MCAT. Just with expiration dates.
That's the goal.
Okay.
Expiration dates, yes.
So you've taken it 2 times now? 3 times? Twice. Yep. Okay. So you got 5 more times. Yep. You got 5 more takes. Hopefully, praise the Lord, you only need it 1 more time. Okay. So you need to do some deep soul searching, figure out why you haven't been successful. And potentially with the GPA, maybe it's telling you don't have the core science foundation to build upon to do well. So you just have to figure that out. Maybe you need to study for a little bit longer, go dive really into the content, and then focus on full-length exams, QBanks, all that fun stuff. So quick plug for the sponsor, like go get a free Blueprint MCAT account, go get a half-length diagnostic, just kind of dip your toes in the water with a half-length again, go take their full-length one, go create a study plan, figure it all out so that you can make sure that you are prepared this time to never having to take it again. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Shoot for the 528. And then
that's the goal.
And then, right, then the application. Write a good personal statement, activity descriptions. I have a whole book on the application process. Like, follow it.
I have them.
Don't sell yourself. Just tell your story.
Yeah.
And let you come out in your application.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Do you think that my lack of being within the medical realm over, I would say, the past year, it's been a year, since I was a scribe, do you think that will affect my application anyway? Because I know that they like consistency. They don't like things that are done short term. So yeah, what are your takes on that?
Potentially, right? But you can't change the last year and a half. The only thing that you can change is moving forward. So if you're not applying until next year, well, great. You have a year of basically of stuff that you can be doing to show that. So you have a little bit of a gap. How much did you help take care of your mom as she relapsed and as she passed? Like, being a caretaker is considered clinical experience. Can you put that on your application? So there are things.
Yeah, I was her primary caregiver.
Yeah. So there you go. You weren't doing nothing. You were taking care of your mom, and that can go on your application if you want it to.
Interesting. I never thought of it in that perspective. It's just my mom, and I loved her, and
exactly.
You just got to take care of your mom. So
you take care of her.
Something to consider for sure.
Yeah, and it's like. I mean, it's kind of crass to say. It's like, thanks, Mom, for giving me an activity I can put on my application. Right? I'd rather not have to put that on my application, but yeah.
And I know you mention it a lot in your podcast, and I'm like always trying to remind myself. But do you think that, because my first 2 years of my undergrad, I was at a community college because I was on a basketball scholarship to play there.
Okay.
Do you think that in any way that would essentially, is it frowned, basically what I'll say is it frowned down upon, okay, that I'm coming from like community college, finishing at a 4-year institution, and
no, and actually
potentially
it potentially even tells a better story, because if you struggled early on and did well later, well, number one, you were a student athlete, which is a potentially huge part of the narrative of like, I was like, we all know student athletes are not students first, right? They're athletes first. And so you were busy with your schedule. And when you transferred to university, potentially the athletics part, that commitment went away. And then you were able to focus on school and your grades got better at a university versus community college. And so that tells its own story itself, right? Which is, I always come back to, it's not just the number, it's the story behind the number.
Yeah, I don't think that I have any other questions. I'm signed up for your course in January, so I'm excited for that.
Application Academy. I'm so excited. We're super stoked. Good. I'll be excited to help you and work with you through your application.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gray, for this. This has been like super informative, helped me like reaffirm that like, yes, applying is the right thing for me. I just have to get something squared away.
Yes. Applying is the right thing. And focus on telling your story. Don't need to sell yourself. Make sure, first and foremost, let's make sure the grades are telling the right story. So send me, if you don't have a Mapped App account yet, go create one. Again, it's free. Put all your grades in there. And then just let me know, and I'll go take a look, and that'll be the first decision. And that's typically the first couple of weeks of Application Academy is like, I'm looking at everyone's GPA going, yeah, you should come back next year after you take some more classes.
Okay.
So let's get that out of the way for you first.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Gray. Appreciate everything.
You're welcome. Have a good day.